Welcome to r/pro revenge, where one employee single-handedly destroys an entire company. Our next Reddit post is from Weird Stories Here. A family friend was working at the same company between the ages of 26 to 64. Part of the problem was the laws in the country increasing the retirement age from 62 to 65 when he was in his early to mid-50s, and then again from 65 to 67 when he was about 62. The old owners were a family, and they ran the business in a way that benefited the employees. From everything I've heard, I think the owners were giving an extra vacation week every 6 years at the company. So on top of gaining the standard 4 vacation weeks a year, my friend gained an extra 6 weeks of vacation every year when this went down. Also, people had access of 2 weeks of work from home when the job allowed them to, or an extra week off for those who couldn't use it. So he was getting 11 weeks off each year. As a bonus, the family owners were allowing people above the age of 55 to use their vacation time as they desired, all at once, or segmented, or even not use it and pile it up for when retirement time came. Another issue we have in our country is that when you submit retirement paperwork to the government, they take effing ages. So it's often the case that they may take over 2 years to calculate what to pay you and start paying you. For the period they delay and calculate, you're only getting the bare minimum. But this guy already had 44 years of experience and a bit more ahead of him as an engineer, and a well-paid one, which meant a great retirement amount. So the company gets sold. The new ownership takes over and starts removing the previous rules. There were 3 employees at my friend's position. Him, a second colleague, and a third one. The new owners fire the second guy, and the third guy has a heart attack literally a week later. RIP. They also dock my friend's pay by 15% because he's making too much for a simple engineer. The 3 of those guys held a patent for the machinery used on something specific, as well as a second patent on how to make that machinery and a third one on the process of the production of a small but significant part. The old owner had allowed them to keep their patents when they invented a new way of production years ago. So suddenly, my friend is alone in that position at the age of 64, and the company hires 6 people for him to train in that new position. At the same time, they gave him until the end of the year for all the piled up vacation time to be claimed. Notice the word claimed, not used. So my friend had gathered 87 weeks of time off. So the new owners tell my friend that he has 6 months to train these 6 new people. So my friend just goes and takes 87 weeks of vacation time with 3 hours notice on a Friday evening starting the upcoming Monday. They don't pay attention until the next Thursday when the CEO notices the 6 people sitting around all day with nobody training them. The phone calls start, then emails, then letters get added to the mix. Then home visits by low-ranking secretaries and such to hand-deliver the letters. Then management visiting his home. By week 7, the CEO has visited 3 times, but the door hasn't been opened once. Production at the company was actually already running, but no upkeep was being done on a critical part of it. On week 11, one of their 2 production lines broke down. Then, people from the company start visiting this guy's house 3 to 4 times a day. 2 weeks later, the second production line breaks down. My friend obviously has a lot of buddies inside and is getting constant updates. At that point, the company only has 4 weeks of backstock to keep up the rest of production running. It's December, right before Christmas, and my buddy goes in on week 13 of his vacation. He says he needs to grab some things from his locker, lol, and the CEO starts yelling at him. "You're stopping your time off right now! You're coming back to work to fix everything!" So he offers to come back for 3 days under an agreement that the entire week will be returned to him for use for time off. The CEO reluctantly agrees and tries to push him for the training. My friend doesn't budge. He only fixes the stuff and then goes on vacation again. By Saturday, everything is fixed, and he even leaves a couple of basic instructions on what needs to be greased every week. And he's off again. A few weeks pass, the new year has come around, and the line is broken again. He gets called back, the CEO pretends like the previous deal will be used again. He goes in for 2 days, fixes everything, explains a couple of more things to the team of 6, who by now have other duties, not to be sitting around all day. And when he's about to leave, the CEO says, "Tomorrow at 8 a.m. My friend says, "What?" And the CEO explains, "You could claim your time off by the end of last year. You just ended your claim time off, so you're losing the remaining 69 weeks. My friend is furious, and he just goes straight off and reports the company to workers' rights. The workers' rights groups are actually dumbfounded by the amount of time off that he's accumulated, and the lady serving him calls in her colleagues to listen in. They laugh their butts off from his story, and they actually issue a verdict the next day. He's to keep all of his time off under the previous rule. So he keeps his 69 weeks, and he gets another 6 weeks from the new year. So my buddy goes in with the verdict and gives it personally to a fuming CEO. According to my friend, steam was coming out of the CEO's ears. The CEO unhappily accepts a deal with this guy coming in 3 days every 5 weeks. If my friend is needed during his time off, tough luck. They should work on producing a backstock. A full year goes by that way, and the guy is 66 at this point, and he's been training these 6 people slowly every 5 weeks, lol. And he's on his last visit before he takes the last 5 weeks off. The CEO goes to him and personally delivers the firing notice for the first day that he'll be back. My friend acts shocked and leaves for another 5 weeks. His last 5 weeks expire, and my friend goes in to gather his stuff. Only a coffee cup was remaining. He gets an extremely big payout for being fired with no cause. The next day, he sends a cease and desist letter to the company for the use of his 3 patents. He had talked with his one colleague who had been fired, and they both agreed on his revenge plan. He also talked with the widow of his now dead friend and colleague as well, and he had both of them on board. He'd actually been supporting the widow. So now, the company has to stop using those machines and the method with 0 notice. All the company's competitors have found and built and patented their own versions of the same things. And if this company doesn't find a solution, it's going to cost 40% more and take about double the time to produce the same part of the procedure of production. So they'd need to double the number of lines if they use the old method while they look for a new one. After just 3 weeks of licensing the method of one of the competitors and not getting anywhere, the stock became extremely low by that point, so they struck a deal with my friend. He'll be an external contractor, who obviously keeps the patents in his name. He'll be doing the maintenance on his own, and he'll be paid by the hour. This new contract meant that he was making in 1 hour what he used to make in 1 day, and he'd be on call for maintenance while having one person there at all time for upkeep. Then he stole all 6 of the people he trained and hired them in his new company and put them to work back at the factory again, with almost double the pay they were receiving. He fully trained them very quickly, and he was now getting paid a ton of money. The CEO was fired for almost stopping production, and he also cost the company a ton of money by firing that guy. Our next Reddit post is from Rusty Sachs. This story is about my sister's first job after graduating from college with a bachelor's degree in business management back in the mid-70s. She was hired by a recording tape company. Anyway, her job was the travel coordinator for the sales and tech support teams. They had to come into the corporate offices periodically for various meetings or training, depending on that field employee's specialty. Brooke's responsibilities included booking airline flights, hotels, rental cars, approving per diems, and other travel-related upfront arrangements. It didn't take her long to figure out that there were a lot of no-shows, particularly from the sales staff, who always seemed to have some valid excuse not to make it to the meeting, and often with last-minute cancellations. You know, the whole, "I've just booked this golf game with my most important client this week, so can you reschedule me?" types of reasons. Seeing as how these cancellations were costing the company big bucks, Brooke hatched a plan that created class rosters for each class, and would, just like a teacher, make notes as to who showed up and who didn't. My sister's name is Brooke. After class was over, she would calculate how much those who didn't show up had cost the company in terms of cancellation fees, missed flights, etc., and present them to her boss, Mark. His reaction, which was typical of a middle manager protecting his little fiefdom, would be to take her report, tell her, I'll look into it, throw it into his box, and then promptly forget about it. My sister has a tremendous amount of patience, unless you're being stupid, which in this case, Mark was, as far as she was concerned. Fast forward a couple of months. The reports are still stacked on top of each other in Mark's inbox, and Brooke is getting real frustrated because these field guys are abusing the time and effort she's putting in while attempting to get them in for their required classes. So one day, Brooke's having lunch in the company cafeteria along with a gal from corporate accounting. They get to talking, and Angie mentions that she's noticed the travel department's expenses are really high, percentage-wise compared to others, and she asks if Brooke has any idea why. Well, that was all it took. My sister unloaded her frustration with all the cancellations with no repercussions, thus sending the travel department's budget off the charts, not to mention the fact that she wasn't getting any support from Mark towards reducing the numbers. Brooke tells Angie that she has an idea to put an end to the waste, but she wants to get approval from somebody higher up the food chain in order to implement her idea, because she doubts Mark's ability to comprehend, let alone implement. Angie tells Brooke that she thinks she knows exactly who Brooke needs to talk to. And within a couple of days, Brooke and Angie are sitting in a plush corner office talking to the Vice President of Operations, Victor, explaining the situation. It only took Victor a couple of minutes to make a decision after Brooke described what was going on, plus her idea on how to correct it. And Victor told Angie that Brooke's idea was brilliant, and that the policy change would become effective on the 1st of the month, 10 days later, which he followed up with a memorandum sent out to all employees shortly after their meeting was over. Paydays were on the 5th and the 20th. Those in the field who had expense accounts had to complete and turn them into accounting by the 5th to be processed and paid along with regular wages, bonuses, and commissions on the 20th. Brooke's policy change idea, with Victor's blessing, was to take the wasted money out of the sales team's expense accounts. My sister told me that the first month the policy went into effect, the howls of protest could be heard all over Silicon Valley, as several people ended up with minuscule paychecks after the chargebacks. But the policy had exactly the result Brooke wanted. Within 3 months, everyone showed up to their meetings on time as scheduled, and virtually without any more no-shows. Our next Reddit post is from Historical Day. Years ago, I, a 20-year-old woman and the father of my first 2 children, who's 26, were going through a rough time in our relationship. He was working night shift as a janitor in a nursing home, while I was going to college for nursing during the day. We had a 1-year-old, and I had just given birth to our son 3 months earlier. There was a woman that he worked with that I'd gotten to know pretty well when I would bring him his lunches. She and I were friends, or so I thought. He was supposed to be waxing the floors at night when no one was up and about. It just so happened that my cousin ran into him and her having drinks at a local bar on one of the nights that he was supposed to be working. Cue a massive fight. He said that they got off early, they're just friends, blah blah blah, it won't happen again. About a month later comes the talk. We've been fighting too much. Let's keep this amicable for the kids and stay friends. Mind you, the house was mine. I paid the bills with grants and scholarships that I earned through school. The car he drove was mine too. I would be nice and allow him to stay till he got something figured out, and still let him take my car to work. I still fed him all that good nonsense. Then he starts being loving, and we continue a physical relationship. I happened to be feeding our son one morning while he was still sleeping, and his phone goes off. I know, don't look for it if you don't want to know, right? Turns out, he's been carrying on a relationship with the other woman the whole time he's been with me. It would have been fine if that's what he wanted, if he wasn't doing the same with me at the same time. Cue my revenge. I crawled back into bed with him, naked, and he snuggled up like he always does. I took pictures from his phone. Nice and graphic ones. I sent them to her from his phone, along with a very nicely, in my opinion, worded message explaining everything that he had been up to and into. Then I got dressed to the wonderful pings from his phone and continued about my day packing his things. He woke a few hours later and went for his phone first thing. I happened to come into the room as he was trying to call her, and when he turns to look at me, I can see all the blood rush from his face. He can't even mount a defense as I tell him all about the conversation me and his new girlfriend have had, along with some photos. All his things are now on the porch boxed up. I tell him he no longer lives in my house and to leave. He starts to blubber about where will he go. So I told him he had better call his girlfriend to come pick him up and live with her, because he sure as hell isn't using my vehicle anymore, and that sounds like his problem, and I shut the door on him. I'd been with this man-child for 6 years, given my body, heart, and sanity to this man. Hell, I was even willing to still let him live there, not paying bills, eat there, and drive my car, all for him to be sleeping with both of us at the same time. Was it petty? Hell yeah, but it was deserved. It's like that phrase, don't bite the hand that feeds you, except in this case it's don't bite the hand that feeds you and houses you and gives you a car and pays all the bills. So it's like 5 times stupider. That was r/pro revenge, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.